Hi all and welcome to a new session of biology. In today's session, we will be seeing certain activities or metabolic reactions that are necessary for life to be possible on planet Earth. In previous classes, you have studied that any complex body design containing organisms such as humans have multiple organ systems. And each organ system are made up of multiple organs. Each organ thus is made up of tissues and tissues are made up of cells. In our body, if you take, we have separate organ systems for specific functions such as digestion, respiration, circulation and so on. And all these organ systems functions come under a single topic known as life processes. When we tell life processes, it includes multiple aspects such as nutrition, respiration, transport, excretion, reproduction, movement, sensitivity, growth, so on. These are a very few life processes events to name. There are many more that are needed for our body to function on a daily basis. So when we talk about metabolic reactions or metabolism, these are nothing but chemical reactions that occur in my body on a daily life or daily activities. So it can be termed as sum total of all the chemical reactions, that occur in my body. And these reactions, that is these metabolic reactions, can be divided into two types based on what the energy uptake or giveaway is. First type is known as catabolism. Catabolism is to cut a large molecule. So here you can see a larger molecule is broken down to release a smaller subunit or small particles. During this, you can see that there is release of energy. So in simple terms, it can be termed as breakdown of large molecule into smaller units, which releases energy. And this energy can be utilized by our cell for other activities. The second type of metabolic reaction is opposite to that of catabolism, that is anabolic reaction. It is the opposite, as in you have a smaller units which make up a larger molecule. It is synthesis of large molecule by utilization or uptake of energy. So if you take example of our daily life, an anabolic reaction is where constructive reaction, whereas catabolic is a destructive, and both are necessary for our cell. Example for anabolism is photosynthesis, where smaller units like carbon dioxide and water are taken up by plant to build glucose. Example for catabolism can be respiration, where glucose is broken down to release water and carbon dioxide. Now, if we go to the first unit, that is nutrition, it's nothing but taking in of nutrients which can help us build our body, or it can help our body cells or tissues to perform a certain activity. So nutrition is a process wherein our body takes up and utilizes nutrients. So what are nutrients? These are chemical molecules which are needed for our bodily functions, and they are obtained from the surrounding area. Examples can be carbohydrates, proteins, fats, which are considered as macronutrients, vitamins and minerals, which are considered as micronutrients, and of course we need water, because every reaction in our body occurs in liquid medium, that is the water. Now if you see, the nutrition can be classified into two types. One is the autotrophic nutrition, that is a plant utilizes carbon dioxide, water, and in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, it will synthesize glucose and it will release oxygen. So autotrophic reaction can be known as or called as self-nourishment reaction. Example in which organisms we can see is plants, algae, blue-green algae and so on. Second type of nutrition is heterotrophic nutrition. Heterotrophic is other, or in term we can tell they are dependent directly or indirectly on the autotrophic organisms. Examples include all the animals, insects, birds, fungi and etc. Now first we will see what is autotrophic reaction. As mentioned earlier, these are performed by green plants or photosynthetic organisms wherein they produce food. And this particular reaction that we will be seeing today is known as photosynthesis, which the green plants perform. So what is photosynthesis? Photo means light, synthesis is to combine. So don't get confused. We are not combining light energy or we are not synthesizing light. So we are synthesizing food, that is the glucose. So we are synthesizing glucose. For this combination reaction we need light energy. So it is an anabolic reaction and the energy comes from sun. So here you can see the plant takes up sunlight, water. It already has chlorophyll pigments in the leaves. It will take up carbon dioxide and it will synthesize glucose and it will store in its body, while oxygen which is produced will be released out of the plant body. So if we see first what is the site of photosynthesis, as mentioned in the definition, it occurs in the green parts of a plant. So mainly some plants can also have stems which are green, but mostly the photosynthesis, the rate of photosynthesis is maximum in leaves. So in green leaves, if you see the structure or cross section of a leaf, you will see upper epidermis and lower epidermis. Epidermis acts as a skin to the plant body. So upper means it is facing towards the sun, lower which is facing away from the sun towards the ground. Upper epidermis has a layer known as cuticle, which is made up of a material known as cutin, which prevents excess water loss during daytime. Between upper and lower, we have the main cells known as mesophyll cells. Mesophyll cell or tissue is made up of two types of cells based on the structure and also rate of photosynthesis. So here you can see column-like cells. These are known as palisade parenchyma, and you can see a structurally deformed or polygonal shaped cells here. They are known as spongy parenchyma. The difference here is the palisade or column shaped and are very compactly arranged, whereas spongy, if you see, there are large air gaps between it, just like a sponge, so that the air molecules can easily pass through. So second difference is in the amount or number of chloroplast present in them. The palisade will have higher number of chloroplast compared to the spongy parenchyma. So more photosynthesis occurs in palisade parenchyma cells. Now in the lower epidermis, there are special cells here. They are known as guard cells, which open and close stomatal pore. So the sun light will enter from the upper side. The gas that is needed will come from the guard cell, stomatal pore, and water comes from xylem, which is here. Xylem will provide water. Chlorophyll and chloroplast are already in the leaves. So leaf is the actual site of photosynthesis. Within leaf, it is the mesophyll cells which perform the photosynthesis function. Now, in the mesophyll cell, the cell organelle which helps in photosynthesis is the chloroplast. So if you see chloroplast, it is a double membrane structure. That is, it has outer membrane and inner membrane. Inside, we have a fluid-filled space known as stroma. In the stroma, there are coin-like structures, as you can see here. Single coin-like structures are known as thylakoid, whereas a stack, the full thylakoid group here, is known as grana. So where exactly photosynthesis occurs is the membranes of thylakoid here are embedded with chlorophyll pigment. Chlorophyll pigment is the one which is helping us to trap light energy. Without them, the plant also can't perform photosynthesis. Now, thylakoid membrane has chlorophyll, so photosynthesis first starts from here, and it also occurs in the stroma. Now, if we see the stomata, where actually the gaseous exchange occurs, these are the tiny pores present on the lower epidermis. Majority of them are concentrated on lower epidermis. Some plants can have the stomata even on the upper epidermis. These help in opening and closing of the stomatal pore. So here you can see on the left image the actual process wherein it is opening and closing. So on the right image you can see these guard cells which are kidney bean shaped, and in the center this is the stomatal pore. So here we have guard cells which guard the opening of stomatal pore, and next to the guard cells there are differently looking cells, correct? So these cells are known as subsidiary cells, which also help the guard cells. So guard cells opens and closes stomatal pore, and guard cells need help from the subsidiary cells also. Now if we go to the functions of stomata, it has two main functions. One is the stomatal opening and closing will facilitate gaseous exchange. Second one is it is also helping the plant body to cool down, because there is transpiration which occurs during daytime, which is basically loss of water in the form of water vapor. This helps the plant body to cool down. So stomata has two functions. One is gaseous exchange. Second one is transpiration. Now if we come to photosynthetic events, so we know that we need raw materials. So we need two raw materials from the outside. One is carbon dioxide, one is the water. And we need energy from sun, and we need chlorophyll pigment. So these are the raw materials that we need. Now, how is the energy conversion done? It is basically conversion of light energy into chemical energy. So here light energy is converted and stored as glucose. Glucose is the molecule which is storing the chemical energy. So throughout the planet Earth, plants are the only ones or majority group which can actually convert light energy to chemical energy. So animals, none of the animals can convert light energy to chemical. We can only convert one chemical energy form into another form. So if you take photosynthetic reaction or photosynthesis equation, so we need 6 carbon dioxide, 12 water molecules, and in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, the plant will be able to synthesize 1 glucose molecule, 6 water and 6 oxygen molecules. The glucose will be stored in the body. Water will also be in the cell, which will maintain the turgidity of the cell, whereas oxygen will be eliminated or it will be released into the atmosphere. Now let's see the events that happen during photosynthesis. First and foremost event is to capture the sunlight, which is done by the pigment present in the leaves, that is chlorophyll. So out of the white light, there are 7 colors, that is Vibgyor. All the colors will be absorbed by the chlorophyll pigment except one, that is green light. Green light will get reflected, hence we will be able to see the green color as the color of the leaves. After the absorption of light, next is conversion of this energy into chemical form. So this light energy will be utilized in the second step, that is the splitting of water molecule. This is also known as photolysis. Lysis means breakdown. Photo is light. So this is breakdown of a molecule using light energy. So here water will split to produce oxygen, H plus and electron. And obviously oxygen will be liberated out. H plus and electron will be utilized in the third step. So why this step is important? Because if you see here, oxygen that is liberated during photosynthesis comes from the water. Now third step is utilization of H plus and electron, which is basically the production of NADPH and ATP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. NADPH is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate hydrogen. So H gets added here, H plus, and ATP needs electrons. So now the final product that we have here is two chemical energy forms, that is ATP and NADPH. These two will be utilized in the final step, that is reduction reaction of CO2 into carbohydrate. Here carbohydrate is nothing but our glucose, that is C6H12O6. If you see here the complete reaction, what is happening? Light energy is trapped or it is captured by the chlorophyll pigment, and it takes up water and it will be able to produce NADPH, ATP and oxygen. This NADPH and ATP will be utilized in carbon dioxide fixation, wherein we'll be producing one glucose molecule. This all the reactions are happening inside the chloroplast cell organelle. Now what will happen to glucose? Will it store it as glucose? Answer is no. The glucose cannot be stored as it is formed, because it will need a lot of water, because it will increase the osmotic pressure. Now this glucose will be converted to a transportable form and it will be stored as starch. So it will be transported as sucrose and it will be stored as starch in the storage organ. Storage organs can be either root, it can be stem also in some plants, it can be fruits. So these are the multiple storage organs that each plant can utilize. So photosynthetic product will be glucose, but the stored product will be starch. Whereas in our body, how is it stored? The carbohydrate in animals is stored as glycogen. So this is about our photosynthesis. Now what is the significance? There are three significant points here. One is food for all. We know that photosynthesis produces glucose, and glucose is the basis for, it's a major energy giving molecule. So we may be omnivorous, carnivorous are dependent on herbivores, herbivores are dependent on plants. So directly or indirectly, all the organisms are dependent on plant for food. So if you take food chain, so plant is eaten by herbivore, herbivore eaten by a carnivore. So every food chain, every member in a food chain is dependent on plant. Second significance is atmospheric balance, that is carbon dioxide released by our body during respiration will be utilized by the plant and it will release oxygen. Third significance is energy conversion. It converts light energy to chemical, and this chemical energy can further be converted to fossil fuels and it can be used by us. So this is the significance of photosynthesis. Now coming to another topic that is important for the photosynthetic event is the mineral uptake. So we know that root takes up water from the soil. Apart from water, it also takes up minerals from the soil which are necessary for the functions of certain enzymes. So main minerals that are needed are NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. So plants absorb many nutrients from soil which are necessary for their growth and metabolism. Example, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, iron, magnesium. In this, nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium, these are known as macro minerals or macronutrients because they are needed in larger amount. And nitrogen is fixed by a certain kind of microbes. One such example is rhizobium. So atmospheric nitrogen, even though it has 70% of nitrogen, plants can't take up nitrogen gas as it is. It has to be converted into absorbable form, that is either nitrates or nitrites. And this conversion is done by a bacteria, soil bacteria known as rhizobium. Singular, rhizobia is a plural. Now coming to second type of nutrition, that is heterotrophic. Hetero means other. There are many types of heterotrophic nutrition. We will be seeing three main types. First is holozoic. That means the organisms takes in whole food and break it inside the body. Just like humans, we take in complex food through our mouth and digestion occurs inside our body in stomach and small intestine. Example for holozoic is amoeba, human and all the animals. All the animals, majority of them will show holozoic nutrition. Second type is known as saprophytic, which is seen in fungi. Fungi are saprophytic as in they obtain nutrients from dead and decaying organic matter. Here they will not digest it inside their body. The digestion occurs outside their body. So if you take mushroom, so let's assume there is a log, dead log here. The mushroom will release enzymes onto the log and the digestion occurs outside, and finally after digestion it will absorb the nutrients directly. So that is known as saprophytic nutrition. Third type is known as parasitic. Example that we have given is here. One is cuscuta, which is a plant parasite. The yellow strands that you see, those are the cuscuta plant stem tendrils. And then we have ticks, lice, leech, etc. So these organisms are dependent on the living host. So saprophytic is dependent on dead bodies, dead organic matter, whereas parasitic is dependent but only on living host. So if you have a living host, the host will perform all the activities such as taking in the nutrients, digesting, etc. What these parasites do, they only absorb it directly and utilize it. That's all. So this is known as parasitic food, parasitic mode of nutrition. So in this chapter, we will be concentrating mainly on holozoic nutrition, which is seen in animals as in humans. So first example is amoeba. So how do you classify holozoic? Is organisms take up complex organic food materials and digestion occurs inside the body with the help of enzymes. Enzymes are known as biocatalysts, which can speed up the metabolic reactions. So first example that we take is amoeba, but other organisms that we can give as example is paramecium, some animals, most of the animals and humans. So if you take example of amoeba, first it engulfs the food through false feet, that is pseudopodia. It takes in the food and digestion occurs inside its body. So what are the main steps in holozoic nutrition is, we have 5 steps in holozoic nutrition. So here first we will see first step is ingestion, that is taking in of food. So here you can see amoeba is eating paramecium. So here it has extended its false food, that is pseudopodia. This is pseudopodia. It engulfs it and it has formed a food vacuole. Food vacuole is formed, and second step is digestion. So it will release all the enzymes into the food vacuole, and it has digested all of it. So here you can see, so if I take first step, second step, and third step is where all the digestion has occurred and it has broken down into smaller molecules. So if third step will be absorption. So whatever molecule was digested will be absorbed into the animal's body or organism's body. And fourth step is assimilation. It will be used up by other cell organelles or cell structures for activity. Fifth step is egestion. That is, the unwanted material or undigested food will be thrown out of amoeba's body. So after final step happens, the holozoic nutrition mode is completed. So any organism which is following holozoic mode of nutrition has to follow all the 5 steps. Now coming to the nutrition type in human being, we know that it is holozoic mode of nutrition, and we have a digestive system to do so. Amoeba is a unicellular organism, thus it doesn't have a specialized organ system, but humans do have it. Digestion or digestive system starts from mouth. So here you can see mouth and mouth cavity. So ingestion occurs through the mouth, and after the mechanical digestion which occurs through with the help of teeth and tongue, the food goes to pharynx, which is a common duct for both food and air. Where when we are swallowing, the epiglottis closes the windpipe and food will be passed on to next structure, that is esophagus, also known as food pipe. From there the food goes to stomach and it will stay there for around 3 to 5 hours where digestion occurs, and then it will move on to small intestine, and from small intestine it comes to large intestine, and finally the undigested food will be thrown out through the anus. The undigested food will be stored temporarily in rectum, and finally it will be ejected out through anus. Here we have certain accessory structures or the digestive glands which help in digestion. One is liver, the other is pancreas. We have labeled one more structure, that is gallbladder. We'll come to that function when we are discussing liver. Now first let's start with first step, that is ingestion, which occurs in mouth. So in mouth we have 3 main structures which help in digestion or nutrition. One is the tongue, second is the tooth, third is the salivary glands. As you can see in the picture, there are 3 salivary glands. One which is below the ear, parotid, one is below the tongue, sublingual, and one is below the lower jaw, that is submandibular. First, if we take tooth, it helps in mechanical digestion. So it will crush the larger food molecules into smaller forms, so enzymes can easily act on it. Second is tongue. Tongue, even though it has taste buds, that doesn't help in digestion. It actually mixes saliva and the food thoroughly so that the enzymes can easily act, and food can also pass through the pharynx and esophagus easily. So it helps in mixing food with saliva. Now coming to the salivary glands, I told there are 3 salivary glands. The main point here is these salivary glands secrete saliva. Saliva, majority its composition is made up of water. It has one main enzyme, that is salivary amylase. So digestion actually starts in the mouth itself, wherein salivary amylase enzyme acts on carbohydrates. So carbohydrates, the complex carbohydrates such as starch digestion starts in mouth itself. So what happens here is the starch will be broken down into simpler forms such as maltose. Maltose is a disaccharide. So it is further going to get digested in the small intestine. So first digestion occurs in mouth, where salivary amylase breaks down starch to maltose. After that, food goes into the pharynx. Here you can see, so this, the front part, this is the windpipe, and back we have this one, this is the food pipe. So when we are swallowing, the food can accidentally go into windpipe, but this process is prevented by this white flap that you can see here, this one. This flap prevents the entry of food into the windpipe. That is known as epiglottis. Epiglottis prevents entry of food into windpipe during swallowing. By accident, if the food particle enter, there will be cough, which will throw the food out of the windpipe. Next is the food pipe, the esophagus. Here we will see a particular type of movement, that is peristaltic movement. Peristaltic movement exists throughout the digestive tube, starting from esophagus to the rectum. So what is peristalsis? It is the rhythmic contraction and relaxation of smooth muscles present in the wall of esophagus. So the wall of esophagus, these walls are made up of smooth muscle cells which are involuntary in function. So they contract and relax rhythmically. So when the bolus, so this is known as food bolus, which is mixed with saliva, when it enters the esophagus, the anterior part contracts, whereas the posterior part relaxes, so that the bolus will be pushed towards the stomach. So when the bolus is pushed, when it comes here, so this part contracts and the further posterior part relaxes. So something like this that you can see here. So food bolus will be pushed, just like how a snake moves, contraction and relaxation. So this type of movement is known as peristaltic movement. Once the food reaches stomach, the actual digestion begins. So you can see here, the contraction and relaxation of smooth muscles results in food finally reaching the stomach. In stomach, the digestion occurs because there are certain glands known as gastric glands. These release gastric juices. There are mainly three secretions that we have to remember here. One is secretion of concentrated HCl. HCl, as we know, concentrated HCl has low pH, which can be very dangerous for cells present in the stomach. So to protect that, we have another secretions called mucus. Why is this concentrated HCl required? Because it maintains acidic environment, plus it activates pepsin. For activation of pepsin, we need HCl, which can make the environment acidic. Why is this pepsin needed? It is needed for protein digestion. Pepsin will digest protein, and who protects the stomach wall is mucus. Mucus will protect the inner lining of stomach from concentrated HCl. Now, once the digestion has finished in the stomach, the digestion of protein, the food, which is called acidic chyme, now will enter the small intestine. Small intestine has three parts: duodenum, ileum and jejunum. So first part that comes in contact with stomach is duodenum. Here we have a specific sphincter muscles which prevent backflow of the food. Why? Because here in stomach the medium is acidic, in intestine it is basic or alkaline. So the sphincter muscles are needed because alkaline food should not enter the acidic medium. So the food will always flow in one direction only. Now once it enters the duodenum, the complete digestion of food occurs in small intestine. So the three secretions that occur in the small intestine, one is from the liver, second one is from the pancreas, third one is the intestine itself will release certain secretions. So liver will secrete a solution or secretion known as bile, which will be stored in the gallbladder. So gallbladder is a storage organ for storage of bile. Now once the food has entered duodenum, the gallbladder will release the secretions into this duodenum. The second organ is pancreas, which releases pancreatic juice into the duodenum here. And third, intestinal wall also has certain glands which release the intestinal juice into duodenum. So the complete digestion begins in duodenum. First, we will see what are the main secretions. So three digestive juices. First, liver, which releases bile, which helps in fat digestion. Second, pancreatic juice released by pancreas contains three types of enzyme. One is carbohydrate digesting enzyme, lipid digesting enzyme, protein digesting enzyme. And similarly, intestine also has carbohydrate digesting, that is carbohydrases, protease for protein digestion, lipase for lipid digestion. So let's begin with liver. Liver, as we know, it is just adjacent to stomach and it is the largest gland in our body. It secretes bile which is stored in gallbladder. How will bile function? Bile has bile salts. So we know that fat molecules are hydrophobic, that is it will not mix well with the water. So they form a clump and they are very difficult to digest because surface area will be very large. So our bile salts will go and bind onto the fat molecules. So these are the fat molecules. So that the fat molecules, the surface area of fat becomes lesser and the enzymes can easily act on these. So bile function is to emulsify fat droplets and make enzymes easily digest these fats. Second is pancreas. Pancreas is a leaf-like structure, as you can see here, which is located just below the stomach, and pancreas is termed as a mixed gland. Mixed gland because it functions both as a exocrine gland as well as an endocrine gland. Instead of using mixed gland term, some places we can also use the term as heterocrine gland. Hetero means different, so it functions both as exocrine and endocrine. Endocrine is when it produces hormones such as insulin, and exocrine is when it releases enzymes. So let's see the function of the enzymes. Pancreas releases three types of enzymes. One is trypsin, second is pancreatic amylase, third is pancreatic lipase. So trypsin helps in conversion of large peptides into small peptides, that is, it helps in protein digestion. Pancreatic amylase converts the complex carbohydrates like starch into maltose. Lipase will digest emulsified fats into glycerol and fatty acids. Now, similarly, intestine also secretes intestinal juice. So here we are talking only about small intestine because large intestine will not produce any enzymes. Small intestine produces intestinal juice. It has three types of enzymes: peptidase, maltase and lipase. Peptidase will break down peptides into amino acids. Maltase breaks maltose into glucose. Lipase will break down emulsified fats into glycerols and fatty acids. So complete digestion, after the complete digestion, these are the absorbable forms that we see in the lumen of the small intestine. Now these amino acid, glucose, glycerol and fatty acids are the final product of our digestion. Once the digestion is done, second or third step in digestion is the absorption. So absorption occurs in small intestine through specialized structures known as villi and microvilli. So if I take the small intestine like this, the inner wall, if I cut it and if I open, so this is the circular view, and the villi will be found like this towards the interior side of the intestine. And when we focus on this particular villi here, you can see there are cells which are present on the villi. So if we carefully observe, these cells also will have finger-like projections like this, which will further increase the surface area. So these structures, these are known as microvilli. Okay, so here how does the absorption occur? So in the center you can see a gland known as lacteal. Lacteal is nothing but a lymph node or lymph gland, lymph vessel. And around the lacteal we have arteries on one side, we have artery, and on the right we have veins, and in the center we have capillaries. Now the final digestive products are nothing but our amino acids. We have amino acids in the lumen and we have glucose. These two are water soluble molecules, so they will be directly absorbed into the bloodstream. Once they are absorbed into the bloodstream, they will follow the path of the blood itself. So they will go away through veins into the heart, and from heart it will go to all the parts of the body. Now if you see on the right side, I'll be writing glycerol and fatty acid. These two are not water soluble, so they can't directly enter the bloodstream. They will be entering the middle blood vessel, that is the lacteal. So lacteal lymph vessel will carry the glycerol and the fatty acids away from the villi towards the major vein, and it will then be distributed. So absorption of water soluble molecules occurs directly and enters bloodstream. Water insoluble molecules such as glycerol and fatty acids will be absorbed into the lacteal. From lacteal it will go to other parts of the body. Now once the absorption is done, the undigested food or unabsorbed food, both undigested and unabsorbed food, will go to large intestine. Large intestine, the first part of large intestine is the cecum, and the cecum has a worm-like structure called appendix. So appendix is non-functional in humans, it is functional in herbivores. So here the food enters cecum and then it enters large intestine. As I mentioned earlier, there are no enzymes in the large intestine, so digestion doesn't occur, but absorption of excess water will occur. Once the reabsorption or absorption of water is done, the undigested food will be moved through contractile movement and it will go to the rectum. So finally the food will reach the rectum. From rectum it will be thrown out of the body. Now absorbed food will go to all the body parts through blood vessels, and their assimilation will begin. That is the fourth step in Holozoic nutrition. So assimilation is nothing but the utilization of absorbed food for obtaining energy, or it can be used for building up the new tissues or repair of old tissues. And last step is digestion. The unabsorbed food or undigested food is removed from the body via anus. The process of digestion of feces outside the body through anal opening is called as defecation. Now, with this, we have come to the end of the nutrition in human beings. Now, let's see certain practice question. First question. So, mode of nutrition seen in fungi or fungus is options: holozoic, parasitic, saprophytic, photosynthesis. So, fungus feed on dead and decaying organic matter. So, mode of nutrition that is seen is saprophytic. So, saprophytic mode is where they feed on dead and decaying organic matter, and this is also known as chemoheterotrophic saprophytes. Next question. Which component in food gives amino acids on digestion? That is, the final product should be amino acid. What is the main component or complex form? Options are carbohydrate, protein, starch, and fat. Answer is proteins, because proteins are complex molecules made up of amino acids. In which part of the alimentary canal food is completely digested? Options: stomach, mouth cavity, large intestine, small intestine. Food is completely digested in small intestine as it receives enzymes and secretions from liver, pancreas, and intestinal juice as well. Oxygen liberated during photosynthesis comes from options: carbon dioxide, water, oxygen, chlorophyll. We know that water, upon splitting of water, we get the oxygen. So answer is the photolysis event will lead to oxygen liberation. So answer is water. Next question. Which component of plant or in plant absorbs sunlight? Hemoglobin, chlorophyll, carbohydrate, minerals. So in plants we know that green leaves contain chloroplast, and chloroplast contain a pigment which traps the sunlight, which is known as chlorophyll. So answer is chlorophyll. And in chlorophyll we know that out of Vibgyor it absorbs all the other wavelengths except green, and maximum photosynthesis occurs under blue and red light. Condition required for digestion of protein by pepsin is options: basic environment, neutral environment, acidic environment, high temperature. So protein is digested by pepsin in the stomach. So stomach contains HCl which maintains acidic medium. So option is C. So here inactive pepsinogen gets activated to form pepsin. If saliva lacks salivary amylase, which of the following events in the mouth cavity will be affected? We know that salivary amylase will break down complex carbohydrates such as starch into maltose. So answer will be starch breaking down into simpler sugar will be affected. Next, choose the forms in which most plants absorb nitrogen. Options: protein, nitrates and nitrites, urea, atmospheric nitrogen. So atmospheric nitrogen will be converted into absorbable forms by rhizobium. That absorbable form is nitrates and nitrites. Which part does amoeba use to take in food? Options: cilia, flagella, false food, mouth. Answer is false food, that is nothing but pseudopodia. Mouth is used by complex organisms like humans. Cilia is seen in paramecium, flagella in euglena. Next question. Which of the following is required for photosynthesis? Options: water and CO2, sunlight, chlorophyll, all the above. And we know that photosynthesis equation is 6 CO2 plus 12 H2O will give you C6H12O6 plus 6 H2O and 6 O2. And for this we need chlorophyll and sunlight, correct? So what are all needed? We need water, CO2, sunlight and chlorophyll. So answer is all of the above. Next, which nitrogen fixing bacteria is found in legumes? Legumes are the ones which harbor or which give place for nitrogen fixing bacteria to grow and produce nitrites and nitrates? Answer is rhizobium. Rhizobium is the nitrogen fixing bacteria. Next question, given are two alimentary canals, identify the alimentary canal belonging to herbivore and carnivore and give the reason. So here we have A and B. So here stomach, both have stomach and small intestine, but here you can see the cecum is enlarged or longer in B organism compared to A. So as I told, cecum and appendix are non-functional in humans and it is functional in herbivores. So B will belong to a herbivore because they have cecum. So this is where the cellulose will get digested. So humans do not have cellulase enzyme, so we can't digest cellulose and we cannot actually digest the majority part of the plant's cell wall. Now if you take A will be carnivore, which will not feed on much of plant material, so it doesn't need a cecum. Next is write the steps involved in photosynthesis. First is absorption of light by chlorophyll. Second is photolysis of water. Third is conversion of light energy to chemical energy, that is ATP and NADPH. Fourth is the reduction of CO2 into carbohydrates. And then finally equation 6 CO2 plus 12 H2O gives glucose, water and oxygen. Next question, which among A and B are autotrophic and heterotrophic? Give reason. So A, stored food is glycogen, B is starch. As I discussed earlier, starch is stored in plant body, glycogen is the form in which we animals store the food. So A is heterotrophic because food stored is in the form of glycogen, and B will be autotrophic where glucose is produced during photosynthesis and stored as starch. Coming to next question, which gland secretes salivary amylase? What is its function? Salivary amylase is an enzyme produced by salivary glands. Salivary glands release salivary amylase into the mouth and this converts starch into the maltose. Next is, how is small intestine designed to absorb digested food? So millions of finger-like projections called villi, and villi in turn have microvilli in them, something like this. So this will increase the surface area for absorption. Apart from that, they are richly supplied with blood vessels and lacteal. Lacteal is the lymph vessel which helps in absorption of nutrients. Next question is, leaves of a healthy potted plants are coated with Vaseline. Will this plant remain healthy for long? Give reason for your answer. So plants are autotrophic, they perform photosynthesis and they need openings known as stomata for gaseous exchange and transpiration. So when you coat the plant with Vaseline, it's a waxy layer which will block the stomatal pore. So gaseous exchange can't occur and transpiration both can't occur. So plant might be alive for a small period of time, but eventually it will wilt and die. Next is, which gland is known as mixed gland? Answer with reasons. We know that pancreas is known as mixed gland because it performs both endocrine and exocrine function. So endocrine is insulin and glucagon, those are the hormones. Exocrine is when they release digestive enzymes such as trypsin, pancreatic amylase and lipase. Now time to summarize the topic. So first we saw that photosynthesis, light is trapped by the chlorophyll and water is absorbed by the root. Carbon dioxide is taken through stomatal pore. So this photosynthetic event occurs in the green parts or green leaves where chlorophyll pigment are present. So the first product that we get is the glucose and second is oxygen. Oxygen is given off into the atmosphere, whereas glucose is converted into sucrose and transported, and it will be converted into starch where it can be stored in storage organs like root, stem or the fruit. Coming to human digestive system, it starts with mouth ingestion. Salivary glands will release saliva. Salivary amylase digest carbohydrates, that is starch, into maltose. Then it goes to esophagus where peristaltic movement will push the food into the stomach. In stomach, we have acidic environment due to presence of concentrated HCl, and mucus protects these cells from getting eroded by the HCl. Main enzyme here is pepsin, which needs acidic environment for digestion of proteins. Next, food goes to small intestine where there are secretions from three structures: liver, pancreas and intestinal glands. So complete digestion occurs in small intestine. So final product of carbohydrate is glucose, final product of protein is amino acid. For emulsified fat is it fatty acids and glycerol. Then absorption also occurs in small intestine, and unabsorbed and undigested food will go to large intestine, wherein the water will be absorbed by the large intestine walls. Once the complete absorption is done, the undigested food is passed on to rectum where it is stored temporarily, and finally it will be thrown out of the body through anus, which is known as defecation. So with this, we have completed the nutrition topic. I will meet you guys in another session of biology. Until then, thank you.